Hi, I'm Katie from Blue Poppy Home. For those of you who didn't want to do the full guided experience and sit here with me for the next hour or so, this video is designed to be more chapter specific. So you just get a really quick here's how you start, here's how you finish, here's what to do to move on to the next step. So you can sort of pause and use it however you see fit. Total time is going to be a lot shorter than the overall video, but this project's going to take you somewhere between 75 to 90 minutes if you do it all in one sitting. And then they're included in that is about 40 minutes of drying time in between steps. And all of that's noted in your instruction sheet that is in your kit. You should end up with a cute little bowl that looks something like this, but will have all of your design choices and flair, not mine. We'd love to see your finished product and see what you designed. So comment below, tag us on Instagram, and let us know how you did. Thanks again for supporting our little store, and I hope you have a lot of fun with this really creative and very forgiving project.
All right, so the first thing I want to do is just go through your kit really quick. So you are going to have 3 napkins, 3 bowls, 4 pots of paint. You're going to have gold, white, and whatever complementary colors were provided that match your napkins for the bowl inside. Then you're going to have a pot of Mod Podge, a small sanding pad, a spouncer, a small detail brush, a larger brush. And then to that, what you're going to add is a cup of water so you can rinse your paintbrushes, a pair of scissors so you can cut out your napkin, and then possibly a nail file or an emery board, which may make the sanding part a little bit easier. A small piece of plastic, you can do this by deconstructing a small Ziploc bag, and a paper plate. One thing I want to recommend is that you have something to protect your work surface, just because you don't want to get paint and glue all over everything. And you want to wear something that won't get dirty, or you don't care if it gets dirty. Acrylic paint has a tendency to stick to any type of fabric that it comes in contact with. And so if you get paint on it, it's likely to be permanent. So wear something you don't mind getting messed up. And we're ready to get started. First thing we need to do is prepare the bowl. We want to get off any rough edges. Quickly just go through, just make sure there's nothing sticking out. Sometimes there's these little nubs on the bottom. You can sand those off. Remember, you're not going to see any of this wood by the time we're done with the project. It's going to be covered with paint or paper, but we just want to make sure we're happy. Because this has now got some dust on it, let's just give it a quick wipe down and clean off, and then we'll go ahead and start painting. So using the large paintbrush and your small pot of white paint, we're going to paint the outside of the bowl really quick. Just dab your paintbrush in water and dab off the excess water, because you don't want it being soapy when it goes there. It should just feel pretty damp. And just grab some paint and go around the outside. Get off any excess here. Doesn't need to be perfect. The lighter the coat, the quicker it will dry. It does not need to be a thick coat. Okay, set that aside to dry and clean off our paintbrush. I've already cut out a strip of paper, so while this is drying, I've cut out a 1.5-ish inch by 8-inch piece of paper that I pulled out the pattern that I wanted to use. So just, you can cut wherever you want on your napkin, and I'm just going to separate this from the bottom layers. We only need the top layer of the napkin. All right, bowl is dry. We've got our Mod Podge, and the next step is to attach the napkin to the bowl. you will have an overhang. This is expected and should happen, and I'll explain why when we get further down. Start by just applying a little bit of glue here. Thin layer, does not need to be goopy. Goopy can cause your napkin to tear. Attach this with a little bit of overhang here. I don't know if you can see, just a little bit of overhang. We want to make sure the napkin gets all the way to the top. Press lightly with your thumb and then continue around the bowl until it's all attached in this top half. Okay, now that you've applied it completely around the bowl, again, you should have this nice lip, does not need to be even, but this nice lip here of paper. We're going to sand that off in a future step. But now you have a lot of overlap, and there's two options for taking this off. One is the easiest, and that's just cut it, leaving just maybe a 1/4 inch left over. There's another way to do this, which is to dab a little bit of water on your fingers, and at that same about 1/4 inch, dampen the paper towel slightly, or dampen the napkin slightly, and then gently tear that off. And then we'll come back to that in a second. The next step is to continue the gluing on the underside. So just getting in here and use the brush to come down and tack this into that base. And continue that all the way around until everything is glued. Again, you don't need a lot of glue, just enough to get it to tack onto that. Work in small sections. Now that we're back around to the beginning, this is dried a little bit, which makes it a little bit easier time of attacking this. If it's too wet, the brush may tear the paper, and you don't want that. But it took 2 or 3 minutes to get around the outside, and now everything should be nice and dry-ish, dry enough. Make sure this is all tacked in here along the bottom. Essentially, you should be able to have the bottom clear, but have the paper all the way up to that edge. If you notice wrinkles that you don't like specifically, use your piece of plastic and lay it over, and then just press down wherever you see a wrinkle that's standing up that you want to get rid of. The paper helps to reduce friction so that your finger won't tear the paper. And just put it on and then peel it off gently. This is not necessary. This is an optional step. All right, set that aside to dry for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, now that this is dry, it should sound a little crispy when you, I'm going to hold this up so you can hear. So it should sound a little crispy when you touch it. And what we need to do now is just sand off these edges. You can take the sanding pad that was provided in your kit, wrap it around your finger, and then with short downward strokes, just go against the inside, go toward the inside of the bowl to take off that edge of excess paper. And what you have at the end will be nice, smooth edge with no paper lifting at all. If using this pad this way is not comfortable, you can use a nail file. I've just cut a large nail file in half. You can get these at the dollar store. And I'll use this one to do the bottom. And again, just short downward strokes toward the center of the bowl to take that off. I drop these all the time, but they're wood, so it's easy. This might be more comfortable for some people to hold on to. And you can see that paper will now start to just easily tear off. I use an old yogurt cup for a trash can, catch all my scraps. This piece is still just a little bit damp, but that's okay. I'm using short strokes and that will get all the way off here. My nail file might be getting a little dead here. Oh, that always works. Okay, so same deal. If you've got a little excess here, you can either, that's attached to the bottom, you really don't need to worry about it because we're going to cover this up with gold paint. But again, should be nice and smooth with no paper lifting. And now you have, your bowl is ready to be painted. And now I need to decide what color to paint the bowl. And I've included these two colors. There's the burgundy and the green. I already know I'm going to paint another one of the bowls green. So this one, I'm going to do the burgundy. You can use a big glop of paint for this part. And we're just going to go ahead and add it here to the bowl. Get it all the way around there. This paint has really nice coverage. If you find that you have brush strokes, you may want to apply a second coat for either a darker finish or for just making up for any coverage. This paint is really good at coverage, so it should be okay. A little bit more. You want to do upward strokes, kind of up and in toward you, because you don't necessarily want to get it on the rim unless that's part of your design and it's intended. We're going to cover that with gold paint, so you shouldn't see it. If you get a little bit on there, not a big deal. And we'll set that aside to dry for about 10 minutes or so, and then come back and paint the gold rim. Next step, this is step 6. We're going to paint the rim and the base. This is, I have a little trick. This will come in handy. Take 2 of your paint pots that you're no longer using and stack them here. We're going to use them in just 1 second. We're going to need our gold paint now. And we're going to use this spouncer. And I brought the paper plate out because that's going to be a really useful thing to dab on any excess, or dab off any excess and fully use what we have. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a bit of the paint here, dab this off a little bit because I don't want it to run down the side, and just dab, get this in the right, we're just going to dab around the edge here. Light touch, you don't want it to fold across or around the rim. You just want to hit the surface of it, and that will give us a nice gold trim here. Because the inside of the bowl, this red paint is now dry, I can have this and flip it over to expose the bottom while not having the rim that we just painted touch our work surface. And now I can dab on a bit more gold paint, hold onto the bowl, and dab on the bottom. and set it back down here to dry for another 10 minutes or so. Okay, we finally arrived at our final steps, and one of the things that artists always need to do is to sign their work. So you want to take a Sharpie or paint pen and sign the bottom with your name, your initials, if you have a mark that you use, like a heart or a smiley face or a star, something like that, and mark the bottom so that you'll always know that you're the one who made this. I have my own labels that I put on, and so I'm going to use that. And I'm going to use the large brush. You want to put your mark on before we do the sealing. Mod Podge works great as both a glue and a sealer, and in this project we're going to use it for both of those things. And I'm just going to do a light coat of the Mod Podge. It's going to go on white, but it will dry clear. And I'm just going to do that and grab one of my little decals here and attach it. I did print these out on tissue paper and cut them out myself. It was probably about 200 of them. Okay. And so if you have done your mark, you can go ahead and start applying the sealant. This is a small project, so we're going to grab again just the edge here down at the bottom of the top edge of the bowl, and go ahead and apply a thin layer of the Mod Podge around the bottom to get that first layer of sealant on here. Again, this is going to go on somewhat opaque in that white, but it will dry clear and it's going to give you a nice shine. Okay, now that that bottom half of the bowl is dry, we can flip it over and apply the same sealant around the top edge. Probably helps if I hold it correctly. So now we're going to do the upper half of the outer bowl. You just want to make sure you get good coverage and hit all the spots. It is one nice thing about the fact that this goes on white is you can definitely see where you have spots missing. Keep going around like this until you get it completely covered. My bowl always ends up looking like a hot mess, but it all gets smoothed out, and once it dries, you'll never see it. Never see a thing. It'll look exactly like you intended it to be. Make sure to get that edge. And when you're done, we'll set it down again to dry for 20-30 minutes, and you're essentially all done. Let it dry for 24 hours before you use it.